Forget what you learned in school.
Yeah.
This is history's unhinged side. Welcome to Lifespan.
Yes.
The Workley podcast.
That's right.
That digs up the dirt on the most outrageous,
Yeah.
chaotic,
Oh, yeah.
and downright WTF lives ever lived.
Absolutely.
All told in a fun and fascinating way. Be sure to share, rate, and follow the show for more wild stories.
Yes.
Today, we're plunging headfirst into the extraordinary and often shocking bizarre journey of Aleister Crowley.
Aleister Crowley.
A truly singular figure.
Yes. Known to the world as the Great Beast 6666.
Oh, wow.
And the wickedest man in the world. Crowley certainly carved a unique and unsettling path.
Absolutely. We've gathered your testimonies today, excerpts detailing his extraordinary existence. And our mission is to unpack the key moments that made his life so utterly unforgettable. We want to understand the forces that shaped this controversial figure and what his bizarre journey can tell you. Okay, so let's unpack this. Where does a life this unconventional even begin?
Well, it began in 1875 with his birth as Edward Alexander Crowley. His family background provides a crucial starting point.
Okay.
They were not only wealthy, but also deeply devout members of a strict religious group, the Plymouth Brethren.
Wow.
This intensely religious upbringing created a significant tension that fueled his later dramatic rebellion.
You can just imagine the internal conflict growing up in such a rigid environment and then deciding to go in pretty much the opposite direction.
Yeah.
The testimonies show he started questioning the Bible at a young age.
Right.
And it wasn't long before he was engaging in behaviors his parents would have considered profoundly sinful: smoking, masturbation, even sexual encounters with prostitutes. It wasn't just a little teenage angst, was it?
Not at all. This was a conscious and quite radical rejection of the core values he was taught. In a rather dramatic twist, his own mother, horrified by his behavior, labeled him the Beast 666 from the Book of Revelation.
And incredibly, he didn't shrink from it. He embraced it.
He did.
It became a symbol of his defiance, almost a personal brand. Here's where it gets really interesting. Even his time at Trinity College, Cambridge, seemed to take a backseat to his real fascinations: scaling mountains, writing poetry, and these early stirrings of interest in the occult.
And we shouldn't overlook his exploration of his own sexuality.
Right.
In 1896, an encounter in Stockholm was, in his own words, a spiritual awakening. This embrace of his bisexuality, at a time when it was far from socially acceptable, further solidified his image as someone determined to break free from societal constraints.
Wow.
His early years truly laid the groundwork for a complete upending of Victorian norms.
So having thoroughly rejected his religious upbringing, he then plunges headfirst into the esoteric world. What sparked that transition?
Well, his formal entry into the occult occurred in 1898 when he joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. This was a secret society dedicated to the study and practice of paranormal phenomena and esoteric wisdom. He received training in ceremonial magic and progressed quite rapidly within their structure.
But it wasn't a harmonious rise.
No.
According to the testimonies.
No, it was not.
There were some significant clashes, right?
Indeed, his somewhat libertine lifestyle and his ambitious personality created friction with other members, including the renowned poet W.B. Yeats. Ultimately, the London branch of the Golden Dawn refused to initiate him into their inner second order due to their disapproval of his personal conduct.
That sounds like a major blow, but it doesn't seem to have deterred him for long. What was his next move?
Well, he found a mentor in Alan Bennett, a more senior figure within the Golden Dawn, who tutored him extensively in ceremonial magic and even the ritualistic use of drugs, including the performance of Goetia rituals, a type of ceremonial magic focused on summoning spirits. What's fascinating here is that the Golden Dawn itself was not without its internal conflicts.
Oh.
A significant schism developed, and Crowley aligned himself with one of the leaders, Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers.
And this led to some rather dramatic events.
Yes.
If I recall the testimonies correctly. Something involving a vault.
Yes. On Mathers' instructions, Crowley actually made an attempt to seize the Vault of the Adepts, a key temple space within the Golden Dawn from the opposing faction.
Wow.
This attempt failed rather spectacularly and further isolated him from the broader Golden Dawn community. However, this experience seems to have acted as a catalyst for him to chart his own course. Around 1907, he and George Cecil Jones established their own esoteric order, the Astrum Argentum, the Order of the Silver Star.
So the AG became the primary vehicle for his own spiritual and magical philosophy, which he called the Lema.
Correct.
So despite the internal drama, the Golden Dawn provided the initial framework for his much more radical and distinctive occult system.
Yeah.
It really highlights how even negative experiences can sometimes shape a person's future direction.
Precisely. The Golden Dawn, despite the conflicts, provided that foundational framework for his much more radical and unique occult system. It's a clear example of how even negative experiences can contribute to someone's development and direction.
Okay, so he's navigated the complexities of the Golden Dawn and established his own order. But the real turning point, the event that seems to have fundamentally shaped his entire belief system, was his honeymoon in Cairo.
Yes.
Tell me about that truly bizarre journey.
The year was 1904, and he was honeymooning in Cairo with his wife, Rose Kelly. This period marks a truly pivotal moment in his life. Rose began experiencing these unusual, almost delirious states, repeatedly uttering the phrase, "They are waiting for you," that on March 18th, she identified they as the Egyptian god Horus.
Wow.
2 days later, she declared that the equinox of the gods has come.
Oh.
This, according to Thelema, marked a new spiritual era for humanity characterized by self-determination and individual will.
That's quite a pronouncement for a honeymoon, and then she actually led him somewhere.
Yes. She guided him to a local museum and directed his attention to a 7th century BCE mortuary stele known as the Stele of Onkhefenonkhotsu. Crowley was immediately struck by the fact that its exhibit number was 666, a number he had already associated with the beast. He later referred to it as the Stele of Revealing.
The plot definitely thickens.
Yeah.
But the truly mind-bending part of this story is what allegedly happened in April, according to his own accounts.
On April 8th, Crowley claimed to have heard a disembodied voice identifying itself as Iwas, the messenger of Horus, or Horparkrat.
Wow.
Over the subsequent 3 days, he meticulously wrote down everything this voice dictated to him. This collection of writings became Liber AL Veliges, or the Book of the Law.
And this book essentially became the foundational text for Thelema.
Absolutely. It proclaimed the dawning of the aeon of Horus and declared Crowley as its prophet. It introduced the central and often misinterpreted tenet of Thelema: "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." This emphasizes the idea that each individual should strive to discover and live in accordance with their own unique and inherent true will.
It's almost ironic that Crowley himself was initially quite conflicted about this book. The testimony suggests he was uncertain, even resentful, and initially didn't fully embrace its instructions.
It is indeed a remarkable aspect of the story. Here you have this text that becomes the very cornerstone of his philosophical system, and its recipient is initially resistant to it. It truly underscores the often unpredictable nature of inspiration and how life-altering moments can arise from the most unexpected sources. In this case, his wife's seemingly altered states of consciousness.
So shifting gears a bit, beyond his deep dive into the occult, Crowley was also a very keen adventurer.
Yes.
Particularly when it came to mountaineering.
He certainly was. Mountaineering was a significant and enduring passion throughout much of his life. He achieved early recognition for his climbing skills in the Alps and subsequently embarked on some incredibly ambitious and often perilous expeditions to formidable peaks like K2 and Kanchenjunga.
But these weren't exactly tales of heroic triumph, were they? The testimonies detail some rather controversial and disturbing incidents during these climbs.
His 1902 attempt on K2 was fraught with difficulties, severe illness among the team, significant personality clashes, and even an alarming account of him delirious with fever, allegedly threatening a teammate with a revolver. However, it was the 1905 Kanchenjunga expedition that truly tarnished his reputation in the mountaineering world.
Oh.
An avalanche tragically killed 4 climbers, and Crowley was accused of an appalling lack of empathy, supposedly ignoring the desperate pleas of the survivors for help and remaining in his tent drinking tea. It's hard to reconcile this seemingly callous behavior with any ethical framework.
That's a pretty damning picture. It really does suggest someone who perhaps prioritized his own pursuits to an extreme degree, even at the expense of others. And then there are these persistent and intriguing theories about his possible involvement with British intelligence agencies.
Yes, these theories have circulated for decades. During both World War I and World War II, there are various suggestions and circumstantial evidence pointing towards a potential role in British intelligence. His extended stay in the United States during World War I and his contributions to a pro-German newspaper have particularly fueled speculation that he might have been working as a double agent, using his controversial writing to influence public opinion in America.
So his mountaineering endeavors and these alleged intelligence activities seem to reflect a broader pattern in his life. A relentless pursuit of extremes, often disregarding conventional boundaries and always with a certain flair for the dramatic and unconventional.
Precisely. His life was a constant pushing of limits, both physical and intellectual.
Let's move on to the infamous Abbey of Salema in Sicily. This was intended to be this idyllic utopian commune, wasn't it?
That was the vision, at least. Established in 1920 in Cefalo, it was conceived as a perfectly happy community dedicated to the principles and practices of Thelema.
Right.
The residents, who included his lover Leah Herseg, engaged in daily rituals dedicated to Ra and occasionally celebrated the Gnostic Mass, a central Thelemic ritual.
But the reality, as suggested by the testimony, seems to have been considerably less utopian.
Right.
There are mentions of his escalating heroin addiction.
Sadly, yes. His growing heroin addiction, which seems to have begun around 1919, cast a dark and troubling shadow over the daily life at the Abbey, and there were also persistent reports and rumors of sex magic rituals being conducted within its walls.
And then the tragic death of Raoul Loveday occurred, which really thrust the Abbey and Crowley into the harsh glare of public scrutiny.
In 1923, Raoul Loveday, a young Oxford student, died while staying at the Abbey. While the most likely cause was enteric fever contracted from contaminated water, his widow, Betty May, publicly and vehemently blamed Crowley and his occult rituals for her husband's death. Her sensational allegations, including the claim that her husband had been forced to consume the blood of sacrificed cats, ignited a full-blown media frenzy.
And that's when the press truly went into overdrive,
Yes.
solidifying his public image as the wickedest man in the world.
Exactly. The ensuing scandal directly led to Mussolini's government expelling Crowley from Italy in April 1923, effectively forcing the closure of the Abbey and the dispersal of its inhabitants. What was intended as a spiritual haven became a potent symbol of scandal and significantly amplified his notoriety. The abandoned Abbey even had his controversial murals eventually whitewashed by local residents.
His personal relationships also seem to have been far from the conventional norms of the time. Open bisexuality, numerous affairs.
His life was indeed characterized by a complex web of unconventional, romantic, and spiritual relationships. He openly identified as bisexual and engaged in numerous affairs with both men and women. A core concept within his Thelemic framework was that of the Scarlet Woman, a female partner who held a particularly significant role in his magical workings, embodying the goddess Babylon.
Right.
Several different women held this title throughout his life.
And his relationship with the poet Victor Newberg sounds particularly intense,
Yes.
blurring the lines between personal connection and magical collaboration.
It was a deeply intense relationship involving both profound personal intimacy and extensive magical collaboration, including the practice of sex magic.
Right.
For Crowley, sexuality was not a separate aspect of life, but was deeply interwoven with his spiritual beliefs and magical practices. He developed a comprehensive philosophy around sex magic, believing that the powerful energies generated during sexual acts could be consciously harnessed for the purposes of spiritual enlightenment and achieving magical results.
Techniques like erotocomatose lucidity.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty extreme.
It reflects his fundamental belief in pushing beyond conventional boundaries and exploring the full spectrum of human experience, including the deliberate harnessing of sexual energy as a potent tool for magical endeavors. These relationships and his integration of sexuality into his belief system were central to his identity, but they also significantly contributed to the widespread shock and scandal that surrounded him.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, his extensive experimentation with drugs is another significant and often disturbing aspect of his bizarre journey.
He engaged in extensive experimentation with a wide range of drugs, including hashish, cocaine, opium, and eventually heroin, often meticulously documenting their effects on his own consciousness. His semi-autobiographical novel, Diary of a Drug Fiend, provides a fictionalized but revealing account of his and his lover's descent into addiction. He held the belief that certain drugs could potentially facilitate mystical experiences and enhance the efficacy of magical rituals, a view he explored in various essays such as The Psychology of Hashish and writings on absinthe.
But this wasn't just some detached scientific inquiry, was it? He developed a very serious heroin addiction.
Tragically, no. His experimentation ultimately led to a debilitating heroin addiction, particularly in the later stages of his life, which had a profoundly negative impact on his physical and mental health.
Right.
It serves as a stark cautionary tale within his broader explorations of consciousness.
Yeah.
Interestingly, he also offered commentary on drug-related social issues of his time, often critiquing existing drug legislation and presenting himself as a kind of scientific investigator of altered states of mind.
So this concept of sex magic that he espoused,
Yeah.
can you elaborate a little more on the power he believed it held?
His philosophy of sex magic was fundamentally rooted in the belief that the powerful energy generated during sexual acts could be consciously and deliberately directed for specific magical purposes. These purposes could range from personal transformation and the attainment of altered states of consciousness to the manifestation of desired outcomes in the physical world. He practiced various sex magic rituals, sometimes involving multiple partners with the aim of achieving these altered states and establishing connections with spiritual forces.
Yeah.
Even the Gnostic Mass, which is a central ritual within the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, an organization Crowley became a prominent leader of Golder, contains symbolic elements related to male and female generative principles.
It's certainly clear why these practices were considered so outrageously scandalous in the social context of the early 20th century.
Absolutely. Within the rigid social and sexual norms of the time, these practices were viewed as deeply transgressive and were a major contributing factor to his widespread notoriety and the label of wicked.
Right.
Yet despite the intense controversy they generated, his exploration and codification of sex magic have had a significant and lasting impact on the development of modern Western occultism.
And the British press, as we've touched on, really had a field day with all of this portraying him as this ultimate embodiment of evil.
They relentlessly pursued him, effectively branding him the wickedest man in the world. His publications on esoteric themes, combined with his frank and often provocative discussions of sexuality, provoked widespread public outrage and condemnation. The events surrounding the Abbey of Thelema, particularly the tragic death of Raoul Loveday, and the subsequent sensational allegations of bizarre and disturbing rituals, fueled a sustained media frenzy that cemented his sinister public image. This negative portrayal directly contributed to his expulsion from Italy. Even his funeral in 1947 generated further controversy, with some tabloids sensationally labeling it a black mass.
Yet, despite this overwhelmingly negative public perception, he still managed to attract a dedicated following and maintain friendships with certain influential figures, didn't he?
He did. While the dominant public image was one of revulsion and condemnation, Crowley also attracted a devoted group of followers who were drawn to his philosophical ideas and his charismatic personality. He also maintained friendships and associations with a diverse range of individuals, some of whom held considerable influence in their respective fields. However, his open embrace of practices considered highly immoral, and his defiant public persona ensured his widespread condemnation.
It's a fascinating paradox someone so publicly reviled in his own time could have such a profound and lasting legacy.
Despite the intense negativity that surrounded him during his life, Aleister Crowley has indeed exerted a profound and lasting influence on subsequent generations. His extensive writings in the philosophical system of Thelema have been key factors in the modern occult revival. His emphasis on individual will, self-discovery, and challenging societal norms resonated strongly with the counterculture movements of the 1960s, with figures like Timothy Leary openly acknowledging his influence. His impact extends into various forms of art, music. Consider the inclusion of his image on the Beatles' Frank Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover, and literature. Even his Thoth tarot deck remains one of the most popular and influential tarot decks in use today.
Wow.
He continues to be a figure of intense fascination in popular culture, prompting ongoing debate about personal freedom, spirituality, and societal definitions of morality.
Now, let's delve into some of those more obscure and entertaining details that your testimonies unearthed. I was particularly intrigued to learn about his skill at chess.
Yes, he was reportedly a highly skilled chess player, even serving as president of the Cambridge University Chess Club during his time there. He also apparently had rather refined gourmet culinary tastes, and even developed his own unique recipes, revealing a more cultured side to his personality.
Wow.
And the rather unusual reason he changed his given name from Edward to Aleister. He reportedly believed that the name Aleister Crowley possessed a more favorable rhythmic structure for achieving fame and recognition.
That is a very specific rationale, and apparently his mountaineering skills weren't just about reaching the summit.
That's right. He is credited with pioneering certain innovative bouldering techniques in the early days of the sport. On a somewhat less illustrious note, there are anecdotal accounts of him occasionally skipping out on restaurant bills. And, of course, his deliberate and consistent use of the unique spelling magic with a K was a conscious effort to distinguish his practice of ceremonial magic from stage illusions and parlor tricks.
There were also some darker hints in the testimonies about his youth.
Yes.
A disturbing fascination with cruelty.
Yes, certain accounts from his formative years suggest a troubling fascination with cruelty, including disturbing allegations of animal torture. These lesser-known details contribute to a more complex and often contradictory understanding of his overall character.
So in conclusion, the bizarre journey of Aleister Crowley was truly a whirlwind of controversy, scandal, and an unwavering, almost obsessive commitment to his own very unique and often unsettling vision of the world.
He certainly embraced the moniker the wickedest man in the world, and whether that label was entirely deserved or was more a product of sensationalized media coverage, it undeniably shaped the public's perception of him for generations.
But despite all the widespread condemnation he faced, his influence on the development of occultism, the counterculture movement, and various forms of artistic expression is both undeniable and profoundly significant.
The enduring enigma of Aleister Crowley continues to provoke thought and debate about his true nature. Was he a misunderstood visionary pushing the boundaries of human potential, a dangerous charlatan preying on the vulnerable, or perhaps a complex and contradictory mixture of both? His bizarre journey certainly provides ample food for thought and further exploration.
So what do you make of the great beast's bizarre journey? A misunderstood visionary or a dangerous charlatan? Crowley's life, as you've heard, was a deep dive into the unconventional, pushing boundaries at every turn. We hope this exploration has sparked some aha moments and left you with a new perspective on this infamous figure. For those of you intrigued by the darker corners of history and the lives lived on the fringes, be sure to share Lifespan with fellow curious minds.
Yeah.
And now, a final provocative thought. Considering Crowley's relentless pursuit of his own will, how much do societal norms truly define our understanding of wickedness? Something to mull over until our next bizarre journey.
See you then.